All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's presentation. Thank you all for attending and to those who may be listening later on recording. Our topic today is stuck on version X, why industrial software falls behind and what it actually costs you. And you may be looking at the screen right now and thinking, wait a minute, this isn't exactly what was in the email registration link. Don't worry, this is still going to be a conversation around the pros and cons around perpetual versus subscription licensing. What we've done is decided to reframe the conversation more around industrial software version stagnation and how subscription licensing actually mitigates some of the problems that happen with using very old or outdated software in industrial applications. And so just to introduce myself, my name is David Nolan. I am a solutions design manager here at SmartSights, and I'm also joined by my colleague, Joseph Jimenez, who is our customer care renewals manager.
Hello, everyone.
All right, so on the agenda today, we're going to once again speak about industrial software version stagnation, how continuous maintenance and evolution of those applications does provide a lot of benefits. We'll also talk about a subscription licensing model that is designed for and that works for critical industry. Then for the second half of the presentation, I'll pass the mic to Joseph, and he's going to talk about some more financial and product update aspects of the presentation today, including the total cost of ownership breakdown between perpetual and subscription licenses, and some value add that we have recently delivered to subscription users, as well as some things that are upcoming in the near future. Of course, we'll have time at the end for questions and answers. And if anyone in the audience does have a question, you can ask it to us just using that question mark tab, the question and answer tab at the top of your go-to webinar window. You'll also see some questions on some of the slides throughout the presentation. Um, these are for you, the audience. So as you see those questions and if you feel like answering, go ahead and do that through the chat button at the top of GoToWebinar. We'd love to hear your feedback and what you think about some of these topics. All right, so let's get started. Why does industrial software fall behind and what are some of the costs? I think it's kind of an open secret in the industrial software world. If you've ever been a system integrator or a SCADA engineer or any kind of role like that, that once they're deployed, a lot of industrial software applications are very rarely or very infrequently updated. And that can happen for all kinds of reasons. It's not due to laziness or negligence on the part of people like SCADA engineers or integrators, but just a few of those reasons could be things like compatibility dependencies. Maybe you're using a very old PLC technology that won't work with the latest version of the HMI software that you'd really like to use. Maybe there's a solution that's running in your plant that's not documented well, and maybe the original designer has moved on, and there's some anxiety around, post upgrade validation or potential changes that had to be made to keep the system running. And maybe there's something more obvious like an extended downtime window that would be required to perform upgrades to certain systems. Whatever the cause is of industrial software version stagnation in a plant, the consequences can be very real, including things like increased exposure to cybersecurity attacks, loss of connectivity within the OT stack in that plant, or to other external integrations in the IT world with things like VoIP and email and so on. And I think we all know that the resource requirements to upgrade a software solution do grow over time. It's much easier to upgrade a 3-year-old software application than it is to upgrade one that's 5 or 10 or 15 years old. And so while we at SmartSights understand the skepticism around subscription licensing, we do think that it does mitigate a lot of these problems, and we'll kind of go on in the presentation to explain some of the details around that. Our first kind of question to those in the audience here, we're just curious to know what kind of software is running in your plant. So what is the oldest piece of software running in your plant or your customer's plant, and how old is it? Maybe you're on the latest version of everything running in your plant, and if so, good for you. But if you are running older software, is it 1 to 5 years old, 5 to 10 years old, or even older than that? We'd love to hear what you think about that. So the first dimension we're going to talk about with software version stagnation is that any one piece of industrial software in a plant doesn't have to change for the overall solution to break. Industrial OT software is integrated with all kinds of systems in the plant, as well as the ever evolving IT software world. There's integrations to things like phone systems, VoIP, email, SMS, remote access. And some recent examples of deprecations that can break a solution that may affect SmartSights customers would be something like the deprecation of Microsoft Basic Authentication for Exchange Online email, which has been going on in various phases for the past several years. Another one is cell carriers, companies like AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, deprecating SMTP to SMS functionality, which is a service that allows messages to be sent by something like Win911 as email and then converted and relayed in real time by the carriers to SMS messages on people's phones. And this one's particularly nasty because from the endpoint of something like a Win911 system, you have messages that appear to be sent, but maybe they arrive hours later or never arrive at all, which obviously is not really ideal or acceptable for something like critical process alerts. Another example is something that actually affects or has affected us at SmartSights as software developers, a tool called Xamarin that we used to design our Win911 mobile application was deprecated and no longer supported on more recent versions of iOS and Android. So that deprecation, among several other factors, was one of the reasons why we made a new mobile solution, SmartSights Mobile. Um, but the bottom line, and really what we're trying to convey on this slide, is that this kind of breakage is really a pattern that repeats itself across the entire OT and IT software worlds. And subscription licensing does benefit these situations because subscription users always receive the latest major version upgrades, so they can update the system to get around some of these deprecations that we've since fixed without incurring an immediate financial cost. Another factor in version stagnation is cybersecurity risks. They are real. There have been many highly publicized vulnerabilities and even attacks across critical industry, but some examples here specific to water and wastewater would be incidents like Oldsmar, Florida, Alkipa, Pennsylvania, Texas Water, Tipton, Indiana. Across a lot of these attack incidents, some common threads are that they are often perpetrated by foreign state bad actors, and they often relate to remote visibility, remote access into in-plant systems. And so visibility is essential in critical industry. Somewhere like a water plant, not having remote visibility to things like SCADA information or process alarms can mean that potential equipment failures, actual equipment failures, or other process issues might not be seen and fixed for hours or days at a time. Or maybe now people have to be staffed in plants overnight and on weekends, and no one involved really wants any of those outcomes. And so the answer to solving remote visibility isn't to eliminate the tech or not use tech. It's just to use better, more modern tech. And so SmartSight's approach to this is our SmartSight's mobile solution. It uses a secure modular architecture with components in layer 2, monitoring things like HMI SCADA for those process alarms, and a mobile hub component sitting in a layer 3 or 3.5, a DMZ internet-facing layer with outbound initiated only traffic going to Azure services that manage authentication and actually relaying data to mobile users. So with this solution, we deliver visibility, process alerts, acknowledgement, and visualization in the form of trends and dashboards and KPI from SCADA without RDP or web-facing HMI. So it's a much smaller attack surface than some of the more primitive methods involved in some of these vulnerabilities and incidents in recent years. With this approach, data is never stored in the cloud. It's only streamed. The operator interface is self-updating. It receives security updates and new features automatically without any manual intervention. So the solution does address needs, and it has a lot of value for critical industry, but because of the nature of the architecture there are cloud services that incur ongoing costs, whether that's uptime monitoring or the actual authentication and data transport itself. And these are best supported by subscription licensing. And you might be sitting in the audience going, wait a minute, I have a perpetual license for SmartSights and I'm using SmartSights Mobile. And while that's true, you are required to maintain a premium customer care um, subscription in order to access SmartSights Mobile. And so in a way, you're kind of already on a subscription, but you're just not receiving, the major version upgrades or any of the other benefits you would get with a subscription. So now let's just kind of zoom out and have a brief, honest discussion on subscription skepticism. I think software vendors have given good reasons for customers to be skeptical. They've almost kind of poisoned the well, if you like, by doing things like forcing users overnight onto subscriptions, bundling in products that they didn't ask for, or increasing their prices without delivering any kind of corresponding value add. So SmartSight understands that, and we've even experienced it as users of many different software platforms ourselves. And so we think the approach to this conversation that's really right is just to be honest about what subscription covers, rather than simply ignore that skepticism. And so we've already kind of talked about how SmartSights Mobile does have real ongoing operating costs, and subscription does cover those off-prem components that live outside your plant network. There's also the concept of connectivity maintenance. We're always maintaining a window of compatibility. We monitor and update our solutions so they're compatible with the latest versions of SCADA systems from our partners like Rockwell, Factory Talk, Viva, InTouch System Platform, Inductive Automation, Ignition, and many others, and also in compatibility with external systems like VoIP, Cloud SMS, email, and so on. And so one important thing to note here is that our on-prem components are still in some ways structured as a perpetual offering. They're not automatically maintaining and automatically updating. I don't think many people would want automatically updating software running in their plant on these kind of critical systems. But what subscription does for those components and those users is it allows them to more predictably plan for upgrade windows. As they upgrade the SCADA HMI, they can upgrade their connected solutions like Win911 without incurring any immediate, financial costs for doing that. So now we're going to talk about a bit of this is breaking news. I don't think we've actually announced this on our website or anywhere else, but SmartSights is improving its subscription licensing, starting in Win911 2025 R2, which is due out in June. Core notification capabilities continue to function even if a subscription license lapses. Now, there are some caveats to that. Configuration will be disabled. Users can't do things like change callout lists or uh, contact information, and their alarms will default to a notify all policy. So they'll lose the time-based escalation, for example, if they're using that. But the critical thing here is that users will continue to receive alerts in real time indefinitely. And the reason we're doing this is from feedback that we've actually gotten from users in critical industry, again, like water, wastewater. These customers were worried that if there's a temporary billing lapse, if someone leaves an organization who was responsible for making a payment and then it lapses due to an internal miscommunication, or if their town or municipality is late on finalizing their their budget, they're worried that the solution will shut off. So going forward, we're not we're going to not going to do that. We're going to continue to let the solution run indefinitely. And if you're intimately familiar with our software as an SI or as a user, what we're doing here is basically taking our current grace mode behavior, which runs for a period of days right now, and just extending that out indefinitely so it never ends. And so this is a point where I'd like to ask another question to the audience. Hopefully people do feel like responding to this one, but we'd love to know, for people who are concerned about migrating from perpetual to subscription licensing, what are your biggest concerns? Are they budgetary? Are they more logistical? We'd love to know what you think about that. A second point I'd like to make here is just that part of the continuous value add that we are bringing to all of our customers, but really the subscription as well, is part of that value add is listening to your feedback as our users. And so some things that SmartSights is doing, we're continuing to invest in product improvement, making our solutions easier to configure and easier to maintain and own over time. We're expanding our customer support team to be more responsive. And we're undergoing a total overhaul of our knowledge base as well, which will be rolling out fairly soon. And so now if you're using, even if you're using a several-year-old version of Win 911 with a specific version of iFix or Factory Talk, and you have a specific configuration question or issue you're trying to solve, going forward, you'll be able to easily find the exact specific information that you're looking for. So in addition to investing in our team, we're also investing heavily in the self-service aspect of our customer support. Now, before I pass the mic off to Joseph here, just to kind of reframe the discussion, I think we've gone through in the presentation at this point a lot of the technical and logistical factors around version stagnation, the problems that it creates, and sort of what SmartSights is doing to address those. But I think the big question that a lot of people in the audience here will probably have is, what about the cost? Is there actually, a cost advantage here to running a subscription license versus perpetual? And the answer to that is yes. And I'll pass it over to Joseph now, and he can kind of take us through the details.
All right, thanks, David. So, David just highlighted the technical risks of letting a system stagnate, those security gaps and compatibility breaks that happen even if you don't touch your software, and the subscription skepticism that is real and valid, especially in critical industry. But still, when you compare the total cost of ownership between perpetual and subscription models for a modern industrial user, uh, the math kind of tells a different story than you might expect. And before we jump into here, I do want to ask, so the question that I have for you all is, in the last 3 to 5 years, how many unplanned software upgrades have you had to fund, due to whether it's like an OS change, a security patch, or some type of compatibility issue, or even just a planned upgrade, in general. So if you could leave that in the comments, we'll love to, learn learn about that in regards to you. Now, when looking at the actual numbers, and so we'll see whether these critical alarms meet the budget. So in this scenario, an existing Win911 Pro Perpetual customer is currently using SmartSights Mobile, and on Perpetual Mobile, you're paying 1,450 a year just for the customer care support required to keep mobile active. Upgrades aren't included, so when you need a major version update, and you most likely will, that's a 6,000 at current rates as a one-time charge. The 3-year total is just over $10,000. Now, for subscription at 1,900 a year, the 3-year total is 5,700. So that's a 45% savings, and it includes the support, mobile, and every major release from SmartSights. Now, please note the 1,900 is a discounted annual rate for our existing customers converting their current license and support. And then we also do provide annual billing for the 3-year term to lock that in. And then at renewal, we'll keep your existing rate plus a standard increase. So no list price and no surprises for your subscription. And, for example, say in year 3, let's say Microsoft deprecates a core integration or a CVE gets published against your version, what would be your cost? And you need to upgrade. So on subscription, it's zero. The upgrade's already included. On Perpetual, you're making that budget decision on the pressure, on a critical system, and also on someone else's timeline. So in the end, it's not a technology conversation, it becomes an operational risk conversation. So the math shows here that subscription is a more predictable path for your budget, but beyond the cost savings, want to talk about the immediate ROI of what you're actually getting for that investment. So next slide. If you're an existing subscriber, your tool could just grow a ton with the latest service pack. And these are the updates you're already receiving as part of your investment. So for Win911 2025 SP1, all license tiers now include unlimited nodes, add-ons, and our unlimited tier now supports unlimited mobile users and includes failover as well. And then for XL Reporter, we've done the same, and the Pro tier now includes 10 clients instead of 1, and Ultimate now includes the Advanced Alarm module, which is fully ISA 182 compliant and includes unlimited clients as well. So Your subscription license isn't a static contract. It grows automatically as we improve the software, and none of this requires a new purchase. If you're a subscriber, you already have it. That's what we mean when we say your subscription grows as we improve the software, and it's not static. So that's what we've already provided. Now let's talk about what's coming. So we're launching Win911 Cloud SMS, which will provide a native support for modern services like Twilio, giving you an IT-friendly way to handle SMS without the cellular hardware headaches. Second, the XLR ISA 18.2 alarm management module is a massive win for enterprise visibility. It lets you natively manage and report on multiple alarm systems across the entire plant, or even a global deployment from one streamlined configuration. It's about moving from siloed data to an enterprise-wide view. Now, whether that's a Twilio integration or enterprise-wide alarm reporting, we're committed to delivering that future value every single year. So to wrap things up, before we head into Q&A, I want to pull this together for your operations. David spoke earlier about the stagnation trap, and our goal is to ensure you have a partner that keeps your system current without the risk. And staying current in the critical industry is not optional. It's a safety decision and it's a budget decision. And historically, those two things have had that tension. Major upgrade costs money and you didn't plan for it, and at time you didn't choose, triggered by a change someone else made. Subscription resolves that tension, lowers your TCO, and your compatibility is maintained ahead of deprecations, not after them. Continuous value every year, and not a one-time purchase aging quietly in place. And here's the one I want to end on. As David mentioned earlier, if your subscription lapses for any reason, your alarms keep running. Your team keeps getting the alerts. We won't shut you down. We won't shut down the plant over a billing cycle, and we'll work with you guys to get you back on track. So, if you want to know what this looks like for your specific setup, your license, your infrastructure, your actual numbers, reach out to David and I directly, or our sales team, or customer care team, and we'll walk you through exactly what subscription covers, what it does, and whether it makes sense for your operation. So no pitches, just here to have an honest conversation with you all